First there was the Nissan Juke, and then the Peugeot 2008 and the Renault Captur. And now Ford has its very own small crossover, the EcoSport. Now before we go any further, I should point something out to you which you may find just a little bit confusing, because when Ford uses the letters ECO and puts them before the word boost, it pronounces them as eco, as in EcoBoost. That's what it calls its engines. However, when it takes those same letters ECO and puts them before the word sport, it pronounces them as Eco, as in EcoSport. Now we'll come back to that later in the review. The EcoSport is based on the Fiesta, but it has a chunkier, bigger body that's designed for people who want a small car that doesn't actually look like a small car. It certainly feels pretty roomy here inside, and one of the few complaints with the Fiesta was that it's a bit cramped in the back, but not at all in the EcoSport. Look, I've got lots of knee room, headroom is good as well. One word of warning though, because the body is quite narrow, you wouldn't really want to sit three abreast back here. Well, you could at a push, but on the whole I'd say that two's company and three's a crowd. Equipment is pretty good too, as all cars get climate control, a leather steering wheel, alloy wheels and keyless go, though Bluetooth is an option on all models. As with all Fords, the driving position is really good. I can actually forgive this car the fact that while you can alter the steering wheel for height, you can't alter it for reach, but it doesn't really matter too much. And smaller people, they can jack the seats all the way up and you'll get a great view over other traffic. The engines are good as well. The EcoBoost 1 litre 3-cylinder in this car, the little turbo. You wouldn't believe it's only 1 litre. It's very, very nippy. And the gear shift that it's got, yeah, I like that as well. It's slick. There's also a 1.5 litre diesel engine, which is smooth and punchy. But compared to its rivals, the EcoSport is nowhere near as economical. The entry-level 1.5 litre petrol engine only does 44 miles per gallon, which is way off the pace in this class, and even the diesel lags behind that in the Renault Captur. Maybe that's why Ford call it the EcoSport and not the EcoSport. Really, it shouldn't have sport in the name either, because this is the least sporty Ford I've driven in ages, and I'm including the Ford Transit van in that list as well, because I've become used to Fords being great handling cars for quite a while now, and the Fiesta on which this is based is great fun to drive, so I have no idea what has gone wrong here, because it's really disappointing actually. At slower speeds, you don't notice the problems so much, but the faster you go, the worse it gets. The steering seems inaccurate at speed, and the front end soon runs wide if you push it too hard into a corner. Now, I could forgive the EcoSport for its handling if it was very relaxing to drive, but it's not. The suspension just feels a little bit too on the firm side, and when you go over bumps you get these jolts coming through the cabin, and when you go over expansion gaps on the motorway, the jolts are so big you actually get a rattling sound behind the dash. Well, that might be particular to this car, but it's just a bit odd. And when you are going at speed, you get quite a bit of wind whistle from these A-pillars up here, and if you notice, that's very thick, that is, and that creates a blind spot when you're pulling out at junctions. And I'm not too impressed with the seats either. They're not comfy. They're just, I've got a bit of backache, and the squabs, they're just flat, so you feel like you're sitting on a bar stool. So when you go around a corner and this thing leans, you start rolling about all over the place. As for safety, you may get 7 airbags as standard, but the EcoSport scored 4 out of 5 stars in the Euro NCAP safety tests, while all its rivals get the maximum 5-star rating. Interior quality is off the pace too. The dash design is similar to the Fiesta's, which is fine, but the material quality is like that of an old Escort compared to the plush cabin you get in a Peugeot 2008. Also, the position of the handbrake makes it awkward to use. Although this is technically a small car, you're going to need quite a big parking space for it, and I'll show you why. These doors, as you can see, they're quite big, and so if you've got kids getting in and out, they're very likely to bash the car that you've parked next to unless you park quite away from it. Yet the actual space you've got isn't that large, so it's still going to be awkward fitting a child seat. I want to show you something else while I've got the door open. Just look at this, right? The quality of the plastics. I mean, it just feels so flimsy and cheap and nasty, this car. It's really not very good at all. I'm not a fan of this either, having the spare wheel on the back, especially as you open the tailgate like this. So once again, you're going to have to park away from a wall, otherwise you'll be bashing that against it. And because this door opens so wide, you're never going to be able to reverse into a parking space if you've got shopping and you need to load it. And if you're parallel parking, you need to find a space that's big enough for a stretch limousine if you ever want to be able to get into the boot. The boot itself isn't the best either. It may be larger than a Fiesta's, but it's actually smaller than a Nissan Juke's. Also, when you fold the seats down, they don't lie completely flat. Now, of course, none of this would matter if the EcoSport was very cheap, but it's not especially. Still, Ford dealers are always willing to haggle on price, so you might be able to get a good deal, and their servicing costs are reasonable. Still, if you're looking at a car such as this, you should definitely check out our reviews of its main rivals, the Nissan Juke, by clicking up there, the Peugeot 2008 by clicking down there. If you click down here, you can watch our very latest video review, and if you click up there on our logo, you can subscribe to the Carbuyer YouTube channel.